So, hello and very good morning to everyone. So, we were discussing population ecology, and the last topic we discussed in population ecology was census. How do you count the individuals in a population, right? Now, continuing in population ecology, so we'll discuss certain concepts. So, we'll start with natality or the birth rate. Okay, so basically, you might have already studied it somewhere or heard it. Okay, so birth rate is number of newborns which are added to a particular population. Okay, the rate at which newborns or young individuals are added to a particular population, that is called as natality or birth rate. The rate at which, okay, so birth rate is basically the rate at which new individuals are added to the population by reproduction. देखो natality में population can also increase through immigration. हम लोग immigration को include नहीं कर रहे. Natality is particularly birth rate. Okay, the rate at which new individuals are born through reproduction in a population. Okay, it will lead to increase in the population. Higher birth rate will lead to increase in the population. Population can also increase through immigration, but यहाँ पे सिर्फ birth rate, the rate at which new individuals are included in a population, it is only taken into count. Immigration is not taken into count. Immigration can also increase the population. Okay, natality rate may be expressed as number of organisms born per female per unit time. Okay, it is in human case it is equivalent to birth rate. So birth rate or natality is the same. In case of humans we use the term birth rate. Okay, now what is the formula? So birth rate or natality is equal to number of births per unit time, number of births per unit time per average population. Now let us take an example, then you will understand it better. So let us say the population of a region is say around 30,000 people. Let us take the example in case of humans. Okay, 30,000 people is the population. Now we take the mid-year population not at the beginning of the year, population not at the end of the year. So suppose 2025 है, so जून कर लेते हैं हम लोग. So if you want to know the birth rate in 2025 in a particular area, you take the mid-year population, not at the beginning, not at the end. Mid-year population हम लोग लेते हैं. So we take the population from the mid-year. So suppose there were around 150 births. No, 150 is too small. Suppose say there were around 600 births. Okay, this is the population mid-year. Number of births is 600. Okay, so what is the birth rate? So to calculate the birth rate, what you do is you take the number of births divided by total population in the mid-year per 1000 multiplied by 1000. Okay, so you cross out that is 60 by 3 is equal to 20. 20 births per 1000 individuals. This is how you take it. So 20 births per 1000 individuals. It is generally expressed as number of births per 1000 individuals of a population per year. And when we say year, we take the mid year. Is it okay? You understood natality? Okay. So birth rates affect the population size, right? So as newborns are added to the population number will increase, right? So birth rates are affected by, so they increase the population, but birth rates are also affected by factors such as nutrition, fertility, and abiotic conditions. Obviously, if, see, that is why we have all those schemes for pregnant women, right, to take care of the nutrition needs. So we have integrated child development scheme launched in 1975, supplemental nutrition for the pregnant or postnatal care, right? Even the children, they are given supplemental food and everything, fortified food, right? So nutrition, if they are not well nourished, then premature births may take place, or some disorders, the child may have certain defect, so you have some particular nutritional requirements during the pregnancy. So iron, folic acid, iodine, right, these are all required for the proper development of the child during the pregnancy. So birth rates are affected by nutrition, fertility, and abiotic conditions also, right? It varies from organism to organism. Okay, it depends upon population density and environmental factors. So because environmental factors affect the availability of food, so if food is not available, nutrition will not be there, so birth rate might be affected. So it is a general rule that if population density is usually low, the birth rate is also low. This is because if the population density is low, the chances of meeting male and female, the chances of them encountering each other, then only mating will happen, right, when they meet. So if the population density is very low, the chances of meeting the two opposite sexes of the species is very low. And if the population density is unusually high, then also there is a problem, because there will be scarcity of the resources. Many individuals will be competing for the same resources. Okay, so if the population density is unusually high, the birth rate may also be low due to poor nutrition because of competition, or physiological or psychological stress related to crowding, sanitation. All those things may also affect the natality. So unusually high density is also not very favorable for higher birth rates. Unusually low population density is also not favorable because the chances of meeting of two individuals is very less. Okay. Now, with respect to natality, there are two concepts, that is maximum natality and ecological natality. Okay. So maximum natality is basically the absolute or potential or physiological natality. So this is often referred to as fecundity. This is often referred to as fecundity rate. This is the potential of the organism. It depends upon how many gametes it is producing. Okay, absolute or potential or physiological natality is basically in ideal conditions how many children it can bear. अभी birth हुआ नहीं है, but you are estimating. So healthy female, how many children it can give birth, that depends upon the development of the gonads, ovaries, right? Ovaries और वो gonads कैसे develop हुआ है, sex organs, and how healthy it is for childbearing. So that is the physiological or potential natality. So ideally how many children it can give birth to in a particular period of time, right? So it is theoretical maximum production of new individuals. Theoretical, ये theoretical है because of the physiological conditions of the female, age of the female. So we give a theoretical number. Okay, under healthy conditions, it can give birth to these many individuals because it produces these many eggs, or health of the reproductive system or the ovaries. Depending upon that, we estimate. That is the potential it can give birth to. Over its lifetime, it can give birth to 20 children. Suppose an animal is there. Over its lifespan, it can give birth to maximum 20 children. So that is the maximum potential. Actual जो नेटालिटी है, जो तुम्हारा ecological नेटालिटी बोलते हैं, it is basically realized how many children it has actually given birth to. ये theoretical नहीं है, actual में उसने कितने बच्चे दिए. It is basically fertility. How many children it has given birth to, or how many offsprings it has actually given birth to under certain conditions. Because ecological conditions are not ideal always, right? So because of lack of nutrition, or because of competition, or because of predators, it was not able to give birth to the potential. जो उसका जो maximum natality है, that is estimated to be 20 offsprings in its lifespan, but it actually gave birth to only 6 because of the ecological conditions. They were not favorable, because ecological conditions are not always ideal, right? So ecological natality is actually realized birth rate, right? Maximum sorry, I'm sorry. uh am I visible? Is the video all right? Okay, so okay, so maximum natality is under ideal conditions, when ecological conditions all are ideal for the particular species. Then how many offsprings it can actually give birth to, that is the theoretical maximum production. Okay, it is often also referred to as fecundity rate. But in actual situation, conditions may not always be very favorable. So under the present ecological conditions, what is the realized natality? Maximum under ideal conditions, it can give birth to 20 offsprings over its lifespan, but actual may it has only given birth to 6 because of lack of nutrition, predators, right? All those things, stress. So that is the realized natality or ecological natality. Actually, it only gave birth to 6 individuals throughout its lifespan. Okay. So ecological natality is realized natality or simply natality. Just natality, when you say it, also means ecological natality, or realized natality when you say, that also means ecological natality. Okay, under an actual existing specific condition. It is not ideal condition, but actual existing condition at present. So it considers all possible existing environmental conditions. Okay, so natality usually increase with the period of maturity and then falls as the organisms gets older. So natality begins, actually it will give birth to when it is sexually mature. So after that it will start, and the natality usually decreases as it is getting older. It will give less and lesser, give birth to lesser offspring, and ultimately after a period of time it will stop giving birth because of old age. Okay, so that is ecological natality. So I think natality is clear. Now mortality, the second concept is mortality. It is the death rate, number of deaths which are occurring in a population. So number of deaths in a population per unit time, that is mortality. Okay, so death rate is the rate at which individuals die or they get killed. It is opposite of natality. It is opposite of birth rate, right? So birth rate increases the population, death rate decreases the population. So death rate is generally expressed as number of deaths per thousand individuals of a population per year, same as natality. Death rate is also calculated similarly. Now death rates in plants is affected by disease. So disease may spread through plants like dieback or some other fungal infection may start in a particular plant. It may affect the root system like wilts. Wilt is a disease caused by fusarium. So it may affect the root system and ultimately affecting the nutritional absorption or water absorption, and ultimately plant will die. So it may be affected by disease and it can cause death of the plants, or nutritional deficiency might be there. So there are essential nutrients. So there are at present 17 essential nutrients for plants, right? That means in the periodic table, out of all the elements, these 17 are needed for the plant to complete its life cycle. If other elements are present or not present, it doesn't matter, but these are essential. Without, if even one of the element is lacking, it may lead to severe consequences, like the plant may die, or it may not attain maturity, or it may not move on to reproductive phase. So these are essential for the survival of the plant. So you might have heard about NPK. These are the macronutrients. These are secondary nutrients: sulfur, calcium, magnesium, and these are basic: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. These are basic elements. These are macro. These are secondary. And then you have micro. Copper, iron, zinc, boron, molybdenum, chlorine. How many are there? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 2 are there: nickel and what am I missing? Manganese. 9 and 8, 17. So these are your essential elements. So even if one is deficient, the plant will not be able to complete life cycle. Macro, they are called as macro because they are required in larger quantities. Secondary, they are also required in higher quantity, but not as much as macro. Micro, they are required in very small quantities in ppms, right? So death rate in plants may be affected by disease, nutritional deficiency, okay, different natural or man-made disasters or habitat destruction. Whereas in animals, it may be because of death rate may be affected because of disease, war, medical technology, improved healthcare, transportation, development, and nutrition, including humans. When we say animals, including humans. So they are all the factors that can affect the mortality rate. Right. So the lowest death rate of a given species under most favorable conditions is potential mortality. So lowest death rate, that means the organism dies natural death. It is dead because of natural aging. Old age आके मर गया. Right. It is not because of an accident, or it is not because of bad habits, or it is not because of war or some natural disaster. All of those may also cause death, but the lowest death rate of for a species under most favorable conditions, that is potential mortality, that is the organism dies because of old age, natural death. But actual death rate that is observed in nature, it is called as realized mortality. So this death rate might be higher than the lowest death rate, right? So potential mortality is the lowest death rate where the death is happening because of natural causes. Whereas in case of realized mortality, it is the actual death rate. So death rate might be very high because of diseases, destruction, habitat destruction. It can be because of wars. Okay, all those reasons may increase the mortality rate. So there is something called as vitality index. So percentage ratio of birth rate per death rate expressed in percentage. So natality by mortality into 100, it is called as vitality index or vital index. Now I think you are familiar with natality and mortality. Okay, fine. So population growth can happen because of birth rate or natality. Now again you have to be clear of the difference between the fecundity and fertility. Okay, ecological natality जिसको बोलते हैं, that is fertility. Actual birth rate. Fecundity is the potential. It is the maximum potential of an organism. How many children it can give birth to in its lifespan, the maximum theoretical value. So if it is healthy, it has more eggs, it will give birth to more individuals. So fecundity is the maximum capacity, it is the potential of giving birth. Actually birth हुआ नहीं है, it is the ability or the actual potential to give birth. Fertility is the actual birth rate. So here the individual has given birth to certain number of offsprings. So fertility is the actual birth rate, realized birth rate, realized natality, whereas fecundity is the maximum theoretical value or the potential to give birth. Then natality, that means if you have higher birth rate, it will lead to increase in the population. So more number of new individuals will be added through birth or through reproduction, not by immigration. वो अलग है, वहां पर भी population increase होता है, but it is not through birth or reproduction. Then death rate can also affect population size. So if more number of individuals are dying, the population will decrease. So mortality will lead to decrease in the population. Immigration, that is, more number of individuals are moving into the population. So immigration will increase the population. Emigration is where more number of individuals, where individuals are moving out of the population to some new area. So emigration will again decrease the population. So immigration and emigration, these are of permanent nature. There is migration. This is temporary in nature. Migration is where animal will move out and again come back. That is migration. Immigration and emigration, these are of permanent nature. Migration is of temporary nature, where the population will again, where the number of individuals which have migrated, they will come back to the original place. Okay, so now let us move on to next topic, that is population regulation. How the population is kept under check, how it is regulated. The regulation is increase or decrease. Regulation is how it is under check or controlled, how it is controlled. Basically, that is the meaning of regulation. So all populations have limit to their growth, because for if the population wants to grow without any restrictions, okay, there needs to be plenty, I mean unlimited supply of resources. But in actual sense, or in reality, no resources are unlimited. Resources are always limited, and a particular ecosystem, it has particular amount of resources. It can support only a particular population level. If the population reaches the maximum, okay, that means the ecosystem can support only this much of population. It cannot support beyond this population. That level is called as carrying capacity. So that ecosystem, it cannot handle more than that particular population. The resources are not sufficient. There will be severe competition after that. So that is the maximum upper limit. So an ecosystem can support only a particular level of population. Beyond it, it will be having disastrous effect. So this is the upper limit, is called as carrying capacity of that particular ecosystem, because it cannot support more than that. Okay, so in nature, population size and growth are limited by many factors. Population growth are limited. Now, some of these factors, they fall under category called as a density dependent factor. That means these factors depend on the population density, while other factors which control the population or which regulate the population, they are called as density independent. Okay, so density dependent means population density. So here the limiting factors are organisms. You are competing with other organisms, other individuals of the population. So the area is overcrowded, there is limited grass, so individuals will compete for the limited resources. So these density dependent factors are basically the limiting factors, tend to be the biotic organisms or living organisms, right? Now let us see. So density dependent factor which is regulating the population, that is competition. When the resources are limited, there is competition between the individuals. So when a population reaches a high density, there are more individuals trying to use the same quantity of resources. Suppose there is example here, inter-specific versus intra-specific competition. So intra-specific competition between the same species, individuals of the same species. So for example here, competition between wolves, gray wolves, among themselves. Right? If they are more in number and limited amount of prey, they have to compete for food. Wolves, gray wolves, they compete among themselves because there is limited amount of prey or limited amount of food for them. They have to fight among each other. Then there is interspecific between two different species. So here example is between red fox and gray wolf. So interspecific competition occurs between members of different species. So they all depend upon same type of prey, rabbits or some other small mammal. They will hunt them and they will eat. So foxes and grey wolf, they have similar type of prey. So they compete for water, they compete for shelter, they compete for food, reproduction. So competition within the population is a density dependent factor. More individuals in a population are there, that means higher is the density, that means more competition will be there. So if there is more competition, struggle, there will be struggle for existence. They will fight among each other. The population will ultimately be affected. It will reduce because they are competing for limited sources. They will fight among each other, and because the food is not available in plenty, so population will ultimately decrease. So population is regulated because of its own density. Population is reducing after a certain period of time because of limited amount of food supply. They will fight among each other. Population will not be able to sustain itself because of limited amount of food. So ultimately population will reduce. It is regulated, it cannot go beyond a limit because resources are not there. देखो, in previous generation, right, your parent, हमारे जो parents हैं, they used to have 2 and maximum 3 children. That means our generation. Now we are having only 1 and maximum you can have 2, and most people are stopping at 1 child because we know that today education and everything, running a home, it is not easy. Our grandfathers, they used to have more than 5 6 children because the cost of living was less. There was, I mean, the urbanization was not that much, rent went, ये सब नहीं होता था, so they could manage 6 to 7 children easily. Now because of expenses have increased so much, now we are thinking before having the second kid, today's generation, because resources are not there. You are not able to support. 5 6 बच्चे पैदा करोगे तो उन सबको पढ़ाओगे कैसे? You will not be able to support a good education for them. You will not be able to provide good education to them. So we, again, population regulation, because here the number of wolves will not increase beyond a limit because its density is its own limiting factor. Density is not, the density of the population is not allowing the population to increase beyond a certain limit because resources are not available. Because when the population increases, competition will be there. That competition will lead to struggle, fights, and more number of individuals will be killed in those fights, and population will again be controlled. Right? Food is not available in plenty, so there will be more death, and ultimately population will come down. So population is regulated because of its own density. You got the point? Competition within the population. So it is a density dependent factor which is regulating the population. Now, predation. So higher density populations may attract predators who wouldn't bother if there is sparse population. So if there is, so here again the example is of lynx and your snowshoe hare. So a similar example I have given earlier also. So this study was done in Canada for a long period of time, right? So census was taken every 10 years for a long period of time, and they compared how the density of the prey is affecting the density of the predator. So as the population of the rabbits or your snowshoe hare reduced, it ultimately affected the population density of or population of your lynx. So prey population is affecting the predator population. So what happened? As the density of your snowshoe hare or the population of snowshoe hare increased, so it attracted more predators. So as the population is higher in case of snowshoe hare, population is increasing, they are reproducing at a faster rate because of plenty of food is available. Now the population has increased, and this increase in population or higher density of prey population has attracted lynx. So now they are hunting. Now these lynx, the predator is getting plenty of food, so now they don't have to think about the food. Now they can reproduce because plenty of resources are available. Now they can think of reproduction and they will increase the population. Now as snowshoe hare population increases, the resources are getting depleted. They are eating away all the grass. Now because they are eating away all the resources, now the depleted resources will not be able to support that population. So now these hare, snowshoe hare, which used to usually eat on vegetables or the grasses, now they are feeding on the tree bark because resources are getting depleted. It cannot support that population. Carrying capacity se exceed ho gaya. Now the population starts to decline because there are not plenty of resources, so they are dying of hunger. So snowshoe hare population slowly decreases. As this population is decreasing, it will not be able to support the predator population because for as the predator population also increased as a result of prey population. Now as the prey population has decreased, it cannot support this predator population. So predators, again, their population will also decrease because they will not get plenty of food. So as the population of prey increases and decreases, it also leads to increase and decrease in the predator population, but with delayed response. Prey population के पीछे पीछे तुम्हारा predator population आता है. Okay, so with a delayed response. So you can see cyclical pattern. So as the population of prey increases and decreases, in the similar way, predator population increases and decreases in the similar pattern. So they observed this peculiar pattern in case of predator and prey relationship. So again, it is also density dependent factor, right? Now disease and parasites, if the density increases, it will lead to more frequent contact between the individuals. If there is higher population density, अब बाजार में जाओ, go to some market, very heavily crowded market. Now the chances of you touching other person, your shoulders touching other person or your hand touching other person's hand, will be very higher compared to if you go to some other market or mall where density is less, right? So if someone is diseased, जैसे कोरोना के टाइम में मास्क लगाओ, you keep distance between yourself बोला था, because the chances of spreading the disease is very high. So if the density is very high, if an individual is affected by a disease, it will spread the disease very faster and it will lead to more death. Parasite can easily spread among the individuals. For example, canine distemper virus, so around 2018 or 19, during that period, 18 I guess, so in the Gir forest, it led to death of many lions. So canine distemper virus, it killed many individuals because again density is very high there and chances of contact, it could easily spread, and their immunity is also less because of inbreeding. Then waste accumulation, that is also a density dependent factor. If the density is high, amount of waste which is produced, that is also very high. Now if you take the example, okay, so increase, just write the example, you can write it down. So in case of waste accumulation, so you can write the example of high density of ungulates. यहाँ पर तुम्हारा ungulates जो है, they are red deer. Ungulates means hooved animals. Those animals which have hooves on their legs. Horse का है single hoof होता है. Cow, buffalo, इसमें two hoofs are there. So red deer, okay, and you have wild boar in south central Spain. Where hunting is also very common. So they hunt these animals and the waste that is produced. So they hunt and they eat, and the whatever waste is there. Okay, so gut piles. Okay, whatever waste is there, gut piles. It can lead to transmission of bovine tuberculosis. So if any of these ungulates it is affected and the gut piles are discarded like that, the waste that is produced, the other organisms like for example Iberian lynx, Iberian Peninsula जो बोलते हैं ना, Spain, France, that is Iberian Peninsula. So Iberian lynx, okay, which is a scavenger, it will try to feed on these gut piles, the leftover remains of these hunted animals. So these animals like red deer, wild boar, they are hunted and they will eat the meat, and the intestine, the gut piles, they are discarded. So if any of these animal it is infected with your bovine tuberculosis, this disease can spread and affect scavengers like Iberian lynx. So waste accumulation, again, higher density, more number of individuals, disease spread भी ऐसे होता है. So the waste which is accumulated due to hunting of these animals, that can affect the scavengers. So that is an example of your waste accumulation. Another density dependent population regulation is seen in case of lemmings. Okay, so these are small rodents, lemmings. They are found in the temperate grasslands. So prairies में तुमको मिलेंगे, temperate grasslands. So density dependent regulation can also take form of behavioral or psychological changes in the organisms that make up the population. So it may also bring behavioral or psychological changes. So as the density increases, so lemmings population has increased in a particular area. So obviously the resources are limiting. So some of the lemmings, what they will do, they will try to emigrate. They will try to move to other areas, new areas, because food resources are limited. Now, because of higher density, they will try to move to newer places. So they have to move away from the current geographical area. Okay, from the crowded place, they want to move to some other place where there is less crowded, more resources. Now, if they have to do that, they have to cross the geographical barrier. Sometimes the small streams which forms the barrier, which forms the geographical boundary, they have to cross this boundary. So ये तुम्हारा original area है. This is the original area. यहाँ population density is very high. It is very high. So the lemmings, so these dots are your lemmings, so they are overcrowded here, the resources are limited and they want to move away. So but to move away they have to cross a geographical barrier. So this is a small stream which is surrounding the geographical area where lemmings are living. So this is a small stream which is at the border. So these lemmings, they have to cross this barrier. So on the other side you have this new area where only few individuals are there, plenty of resources are available. So this is the new area. They want to move into the new area. So to move into the new area, they have to cross this geographical barrier. They have to cross this stream to move to the new area. So while attempting to do so, most of the lemmings, they fall in the stream and they die. In, in an attempt to cross the older area and jump over to the new area, they have to cross the stream, and in doing so most of them, they fall into the stream and they die, and this is misinterpreted as suicides. Okay, so this process is being misinterpreted as mass suicide of sorts in popular culture, because the lemmings sometimes die while trying to cross the bodies of water. तो सुसाइड कर रहे हैं बोल के एज्यूम कर लोगों ने, पॉपुलर, ये अर्बन लेजेंड की तरह. So it, they think that they are committing suicide, but actually they are trying to cross the barrier to move to the new area. Got it? Density dependent factors. So the second group of factors, the limiting factors which is regulating the population, that is density independent factor. So it does not depend on how many individuals are present in the population. Now for example, which is given here also, suppose there is a forest fire. Okay, and this forest fire also caused the death of many deers. So death of these deers, which has who, I mean, who have died in the forest fire, it has nothing to do with the number of deers. It was because of forest fire, not because of the number of deers in the original population. So let's consider a wildfire that breaks out in a forest where deer live. So the fire will kill any unlucky deer that are present regardless of the population size. If it is surrounded by forest fire, those deers will die, right? It has nothing to do with the population density. So it is population density independent factor. So density independent limiting factors often take in the form of natural disasters, severe weather, pollution that may lead to the death, and population regulation. Population is ultimately coming down. It has nothing to do with the number of individuals which were living earlier. So population density से इसका कोई लेना देना नहीं है. So these are density independent factors which are also regulating the density, controlling the population. Okay, so those were density dependent and density independent factors. Now patterns of population growth. Okay, so there are two types of growth. So pattern of population growth describes how the number of individuals in population changes over time. Now there are two types of population growth. First one is exponential growth curve, where it is assuming the J shape. This is called as J shape curve, exponential growth. So it is the first case. So time is in the x-axis and population size is on the y-axis. Now under ideal conditions, under ideal conditions, unlimited, under unlimited supply of resources, okay, under such conditions, population will increase exponentially. It will increase very fast. It will, so population growth in a very short period of time, the population has increased significantly. So this can happen only for a short period of time. Okay, under ideal conditions where there is unlimited supply of resources, population will increase exponentially. Okay, but in reality, resources are never unlimited, है ना? Under ideal conditions, as we are assuming this, these are based on assumptions. This based on an assumption that resources are unlimited, but in reality resources are never unlimited, they are always limited. So population will increase significantly for a short period of time and then it suddenly crashes. Population will crash, it will suddenly drop. Okay. So after attaining a peak value, it will suddenly drop because it has reached the carrying capacity, because the resources which are present, they are not able to support such increase in the population. So it has reached its limit. Now it cannot support more than that, and suddenly you will see the population crash because it has reached the carrying capacity of the ecosystem. So the ecosystem cannot support higher population than that. Suddenly the population will crash. That is exponential growth, where it has J-shaped curve under ideal conditions, which are, I mean, for short period of time, because of resources are, plenty of resources are available, but they are always limited. So for a short period of time, you can see this kind of curve, but resources are always limited, and definitely once the population reaches the carrying capacity of the ecosystem, it will crash. Second type is your logistic growth, or which has S, a sigmoid curve. Okay, so there is an initial slow increase in the population, and the population will increase at a faster rate. This is the lag phase, this is the log phase, and after attaining a certain population level, the population will stabilize. It will stabilize because, again, the resources are always limited. This is the actual situation. It is not ideal condition. Because the resources are always limited, the population cannot increase beyond a limit. Okay, it cannot go beyond the carrying capacity of the ecosystem. So density dependent factors such as competition, predation, all these factors, they will stabilize, or they will slow down the population growth. It will stabilize and it will remain there. It cannot increase beyond that. So it cannot go beyond the carrying capacity. So density dependent factors, they will stabilize the population. giving you the sigmoid shape curve. This is called as logistic growth. These are the two types. Okay, so in the notes, the explanation is given, so you can just go through that. Then we have another concept which is known as survivalship curves. Okay, so survivalship curves, basically it is again graphical representation which represents that how many young individuals will move on to the older stage. Okay, so survivalship curves, these are tools to track the sizes of population. So it is a graph that measures the proportion of individuals of a given species at different ages. So how many young individuals will move on to middle age and go on to older ages. So it is a graphical representation which gives the information about the proportion of individuals of a given species at different ages. Okay, so the number of individuals of a population is given on y-axis, that is number of survivors, that means the young ones that are born, how many of them they move on to next stage. So that is the number of survivors. And on the x-axis the age is given. On the x-axis you have the age. Right. So accordingly we have three types of curves and we will see the examples of those. So type 1 curve. So type 1 curve, this is this one. We are talking about this curve, type 1 curve. So it is convex, इस shape में ना convex shape है इसका, convex shape. Okay, so the population has higher survival rates through the early and middle life. So the survival rate of the young individuals is high. More number of individuals will go to the adult stage. Survival rates through the early and middle life is higher, high survival rates, with mortality sharply increasing in the old age. So mortality rate will be more in the old age. Okay, so survival rate in the young and middle age is higher. So in what kind of animals you see that? So these animals, these individuals or these species, they have fewer offspring. They give rise to very few offspring and they have very high parental investment, yani care. They take care of their young individuals, they don't leave it in the wild. Survival of the fittest, chance पे depend करते हैं, ऐसा नहीं है. They take care of the young ones. Okay, and they teach them how to find the food resources, how to survive, survival strategy. They will teach all those techniques to their young individuals. They will teach how to hunt, how to track the prey, everything. So they have high parental investment. For example, humans, elephants, also in the other predators, you have this lions, tigers. So they have this higher parental care. More individuals will move on to the adult stage and mortality will increase in the older age. So this is type 1 survivalship curve, type 1. So it is convex in shape. So more number of individuals which have taken birth, they are moving on to the middle age, to young and to middle age, and death rate will increase when they are getting older. So that is type 1 curve. Okay, convex. You understood the example? They have high parental care. That is why they survive. Okay. Now, type 3 curve. Type 2 हम लोग देखेंगे. Type 3 curve. Now, this is type 3 curve. You see, it is concave in shape. Type 3 curve. So, they have very high mortality in the youth, but survivors which have survived, they live very long. So यहाँ पे see example in case of plants. Okay, so more individuals will be born. So many seeds will germinate, but not all of them will go to the next stage. So very few of them will survive, but once they survive, they live very long. So concave curve. So survivors live long lives. So many offsprings, they are producing many offsprings because most of them they die. So ये एक strategy है. Higher number of the offsprings they give birth to, more chances are there that few of them at least will survive. So little or no parental care. Little or no care. So many fishes, insects they will lay eggs, and so what they do, the insect will lay the eggs on a food resource. So एक plant के leaf के ऊपर, so they will lay the eggs, and the female moth will, or the female insect will fly away. So these young ones, when they hatch, they will feed on the leaves on which the eggs are laid. They will feed on the plant upon which the eggs were laid, and now they will go to the next stage. So in between, many of the predators like birds, they will eat the larva, right? So chances of survival is very less. Out of suppose say 1,000, only 10 or 15 might survive. The insect may lay 1,000 eggs, and out of the 1,000 legs, only 10 to 15 may survive. Only 10 to 15 may survive. There is no parental care. Okay. Examples are oysters, insects, many fishes, plants. That is type 3 curve, that is concave curve. Then there is type 2, where the curve is straight line, diagonal line. Type 2 curve. You can see. Right? So type 2. So there is constant death rate at any age. There is a constant death rate. So equal chances of dying at any life stage. So here you can say, now take an example of chicken. Birds may take an example of chicken. You can eat it at egg stage. There is equal chance of dying at egg stage, or you can eat the chicken later also when it is very tender, or after it has attained certain size, it can die, right? So it can be hunted, it can become prey for any other larger predator. So there is equal chance of dying at every stage. So the line is straight diagonal line. No, equal chance of dying at any life stage. So moderate offspring, तो मॉडरेट नंबर, ना तो बहुत ही कम ना तो बहुत ही ज्यादा, मॉडरेट ऑफस्प्रिंग, बैलेंस्ड पेरेंटल केयर, नॉट टू मच केयर, नॉट केयरलेस एट ऑल. So birds and some lizards, they show this type of survivalship curve. Now you understood what is survivalship curve. So this is a graphical representation where it is showing the number of individuals, the proportion of individuals of a given species at different ages, their chances of survival. So accordingly, they have strategies. So where the chance of survival is very less, they produce more number of offsprings. Where the chance of survival is very high in the early and middle ages, they produce less number of offspring. Because of parental care, the chance of survival is very high. So type 1, type 3 and type 2 curves. Got it? So last one is, again, the animals, they have different type of strategies. For example, here we have two types of animals, similiparous and iteroparous. So they have two contrasting reproductive strategies for survival. These are reproductive strategies. So in similarparous species, they reproduce only once in their lifetime and they die. Similarparous species, only they reproduce once and they will die. So example is insects. There are many insects which reproduce and they will ultimately die after that. Just say you have female silk moth. So after reproduction, male will die immediately, female will lay the eggs and then they will die. Okay. So they reproduce only once in a lifetime. Now, for example, in case of plants also, there are many annuals and biennial plants which will reproduce once and they will die. Annuals and biennials, they will reproduce only once and they will die. So they are similarparous species. Okay. Then we have heteroparous. So they are capable of multiple reproductive events across their lifespan. They reproduce multiple times. These are called as heteroparous. So examples, if you see similarparous organisms, they include annual and biennial plants. So annual may you have most grains, crops and vegetables. A bamboo, it will reproduce only once. Okay, after a long period of time. Then century plants, that is agave americana. So the plant from which tequila is produced. Then Pacific salmon, it will reproduce and die after that. Pacific salmon, it will come down to the rivers. From the ocean, they will migrate to the rivers where they were born. So as far as I know all bamboos, I think they are monocarpic. They reproduce only once. I'm not sure actually. I have to check. Is there any exception for that? But generally, all of them, they will reproduce only once. So you might have learned in forestry, right? Forestry, you might have covered bamboo. So was there any exception or as a general rule? Generally, bamboo, they flower only once. Okay. So Pacific salmon also, they will migrate. They will. Yeah, I don't know about the exception, but generally bamboo, they reproduce only once. So Pacific salmon, for breeding, they will go back to the rivers where they were born. They use the Earth's magnetic field and they will migrate. So they will go back to the rivers where they were born and they will go upstream. They will jump and they will go upstream from the oceans into the rivers. They will breed there and after they lay eggs, they will die. But it is not the case in case of Atlantic salmon. Pacific salmon में ऐसा होता है. Atlantic salmon, they will breed multiple times. So salmon generally बोलोगे तो they have multiple types of salmons are there. Pacific salmon, they breed only once. Atlantic salmon, they breed multiple times. So some insects and marsupial species, marsupials generally they are found in Australia. They have, they will breed only once and they will die. Then we have heteroparous organisms, which includes most mammals like humans, pigs, all birds, most reptiles, and most fishes, like for example Atlantic salmon, and most perennial plants. Because perennial plants they will flower every 1 or 2 years. Multiple reproductive cycles are there. So these are called as heteroparous animals. They have different types of reproductive strategy. Hmm. So that I think concludes our population ecology. Okay. Are there any doubts in population ecology? So I would suggest you to go through the notes thoroughly. I have given in detail. So notes पढ़ लो, that will be enough. If you encounter something which is not clear or if you have some doubts, you can ask me in the next session. Okay. So we have concluded population ecology. Let us move on to new topic, that is the next stage in your, just give me a moment. Just give me a moment. Is the video clear? Am I visible? So sometimes when I pause, the video streaming will stop. So that is why I want to know. All right. So we have completed population ecology. The next level of organization in the hierarchy of ecology is, after individual we have population, after population we have community. Okay. So community is basically different species which are living together and interacting. That is a community. Different species. For example, here you can see near this small pond you have elephants, you have cranes, you have zebra. If you look at the side, you might have also some predator drinking the water from the same source. So multiple species living in a particular area and interacting among themselves. So that is your community. Okay. So let us start with the meaning of community, then we can move forward, we can proceed. So what is a community? So community is multiple species, multiple species living in a common area and interacting among themselves. Okay. So populations of different species living and interacting in a common area, that is your community. So if you see the hierarchy in the organization levels in your ecology, so organism is at the, individual organism is the first level. So multiple individuals or number of individuals of the same species makes up the population. So many individuals of the same species which can breed and which are living in a particular place at a particular time is called as population. Next level in the organization is community, where multiple species they are living in a particular area and they are interacting among themselves. Now this interaction can be positive, can be beneficial for one species, harmful for another species. Okay, there are multiple types of interactions, we will learn about them. So community is where many individuals from different species are interacting with each other. So up to here we have only biotic component. That means only living organisms. They are living and interacting. Now, after this, next level of organization is ecosystem. So ecosystem mein we have both biotic and abiotic, multiple species or multiple communities. Multiple communities are interacting with each other and also with the abiotic environment. That is your ecosystem. Multiple ecosystems, right? So these ecosystems over a large area throughout the world, this is called as biome. And all the biomes together they form biosphere. So you know this level of organization in ecology. So we have understood what is community. For example, plant community, animal community. So multiple animal species are there, multiple plant species are there, multiple microorganisms are there. Okay, so this can be plants, animals, or all other living forms. Together they form community. Okay, now population of a single species cannot survive by itself. Obviously it has to depend upon other species. So suppose there is a species, say fox. Okay, so fox cannot live on its own, it requires other species. Some of them may be prey. Okay, so it lives on, they will hunt the rabbits, so they are dependent upon other species for food, for shelter, right? So a population of a single species cannot survive on their own, they require other species, they depend upon other species for their survival. So an aggregation of populations of different species living together in interdependence, they are interdependent on each other in a specific area, having a specific set of environmental conditions constitute a biotic community. So aggregation of populations of different species, okay, living together and interacting with each other, they are interdependent. A single species cannot survive on its own. So example, various plants and animals in a pond or lake constitute a biotic community, or plants and animals in a particular forest consist of biotic community. Okay, so multiple species. Now in communities again we have two types, major community and minor community. Okay, so when we say a lake or a forest, a desert or a grassland, so this is a major community, right? So because in forest you have plant community, animal community, and microbial community also, right? So you have amalgam or mix of microbial community, floral community, faunal community, right? All of them together it forms a major community. They are all interacting with each other, they are all interdependent, right? So animals, herbivores, they depend upon plants, carnivores, they depend upon herbivores, microbes, they depend upon plants, animals, and plants, herbivores, and carnivores. When they die, they provide food for the organ in the form of organic matter to the microbes. So they are all interdependent, because again plants are dependent upon microbes, because microbes will degrade the organic matter, they will provide the inorganic nutrients which are required by plants. Nutrient cycling, plants are also dependent upon microbes, right? So they are all interdependent. So when we say major community, it consists of all the plant community plus microbial community plus animal community, both herbivores, carnivores, and decomposers. This is a major community. A pond or a all the animals and plants living in a pond, all the animals or plants living or microbes living in a forest. This is a major community. Now, when we say minor community, if you take only plants, that is a minor community. Only plant community. Plants, maybe you have different species, right? You have some herbs, shrubs, annuals, biennials, perennials. In plants, you have multiple species. So this is a smaller community. If you take only animals, that is a smaller community. If you take only microbes, that is a smaller community. Okay, or minor community. So smaller community which is not self-sustaining or independent. They require other communities for existence. Whereas a major community, it is self-sustaining. Plants, they will produce food to the, they will produce their own food, and they will provide food to the herbivores. Herbivores, they will provide food to the, they are prey for the carnivores. Carnivores are again plants. Herbivores or carnivores, when they die, microbes, they will decompose them and recycle the nutrients. So it is a self-sustaining community. It is called as major community. Minor community, for example, plants. Only plants cannot survive on their own, because nutrient cycling, who will do that? Microbes. So only plants, they cannot survive on their own. They have to depend upon other communities. This is the minor community. Only if you isolate plants or isolate animals separately, they form the minor community. I guess now you are familiar with the concept of community and types of community. All right. Moving on. Shall we move on? Okay. Next, we are looking at characteristics of a community. As we have seen the features of a population number or size of the population, density of the population, those things we have discussed. In the similar way, we also have certain characteristics in a community. Okay. So first characteristic or first feature is diversity of a species. So diversity in simple terms means species richness. Diversity, when we say how many number of species are there, counting all of them, plants, animals, everything, counting all of them, how many species are there? So number of species, if it is higher, species richness or diversity is higher. Okay. So species diversity, it includes bacteria, plants, animals, all the species, because in a major community you have all types of organisms. So these are genetically and taxonomically distinct from one another. Okay. Species diversity can be at local or regional level, in a small area or a larger area. All right. Now, when we say diversity of species, we have subcomponents in that. So in diversity of species, we have species richness and species evenness. So these are two concepts within diversity of species. Now, when we say species richness, it is actually number of species. Okay. Now, when we say species evenness, it is the spread or distribution of those species. Now, if you look at the left side, we have a diagram where we have two communities, community 1 and community 2, plant communities are there. When we see first community, when you look at the first community, you see community 1, you have 4 species. In community 2 also you have 4 species. So when we say, when we talk about species richness, both the communities are equally rich. Both of them has 4 species. Number of species की बात कर रहे थे. So species richness wise, both the communities are same. Okay. Community 1 and community 2 have same species richness. All right. They're equally rich. But community 1 has more species evenness than community 2. Community 2 में these 4 species, they are not equally distributed. In community 1, all the species have same population, right? So 25% of this type of tree, 25% of a conifer, some type of conifer, 25% of again. So all the 4 species are equally distributed, same population. This is called as species evenness. uniformity in distribution. Whereas in species 2, you see 6% of first type, 12% of second type. This is the dominant species here, 70%, and 12% of this fourth type of tree. So four species are there, but they are not evenly distributed with respect to number. Some are more in number, others are less in number. Okay, so that is species evenness. Then there is another term called as conservation value. Now, when we talk about conservation values, we say higher conservation value or lower conservation value. Basically, this is for conservation efforts. So if an area has more diversity, more rich in diversity, more number of species, that area has higher conservation value. That means it needs to be protected. Okay, higher priority should be given to that area. In the conservation effort, higher priority should be given to those areas which has higher conservation values. Okay, if that area has very rare species, higher conservation value means richer with respect to species diversity, rare plants or animals are there. Those areas which has rare plants and animals, or which are very high in diversity, which are very rich in diversity, they will be given higher conservation values, and priority should be given, or priority is generally given to those areas, conservation of those areas. Okay, those areas which has less species richness, more uniformity, and less rare species, general species, they will be given lesser conservation values. Okay, so in the conservation effort, they will be given moderate to lower preference. First preference will be given to those areas which are very rich in biodiversity, or where there are very rare species. They will be given higher conservation value. Critically endangered species, so higher conservation value will be given. More efforts and higher priority will be given to that. Okay. Now, so when we are talking about communities, so some species may dominate in a community. Okay, some species may dominate, maybe because those species are higher in number, they are more in number, or they have higher biomass with respect to other species. When compared to other species, overall biomass of that species will be higher, or they are playing any very critical role, then it becomes dominant species. So some species dominate the community. Okay, so in a community, different species interact among themselves, and in some communities the interactions results into dominance by one species or by a prominent species in a group. So some species may dominate other species. Okay, these are called as dominants. So this may be because of the proportion of biomass they hold. They have the highest biomass. For example, the plant species, the larger trees in an ecosystem, so they have the higher biomass, so they might be dominant. Or sheer numbers, they are more in number. The dominance is because of sheer numbers. They are present in higher number than any other species. So maybe because of abundance, or maybe because of higher biomass of that species, these dominate the ecosystem. They dominate the communities. So for example, Ulmus glutinosa, so this is alder plant. So this is the tree dominating in the Western European woodland areas. Okay, so this is an example. There are other examples. For example, tall trees. Tall trees like oaks, hickories, pines, they are dominant, controlling the light which is reaching to the ground. They control the amount of light which reaches the ground or floor, affecting the soil and allowing the specific understory plants to thrive and or to be suppressed. So they will decide which plants to be allowed at the lower story or which to survive, and others will be eliminated because they will not receive any sunlight. So they will either allow or block the sunlight. So it depends upon the trees. So these are the dominant trees that will affect the other species. Tall trees, huh? They will decide the amount of light which reaches the soil and what kind of plants will be grown in the understory. Bogs, huh? Sphagnum moss. This is the dominant species. So bogs are waterlogged areas basically, which has higher organic matter content, 40% or more. So sphagnum moss is the dominant species. It creates acidic condition, waterlogged conditions. So they shape the entire bog community. They are the dominant species there. In grasslands, you see specific grasses and sedges. So sedges are also type of grass, but if you see the stem, it is triangular. The ट्रांसोसेक्शन ऑफ द स्टेम विल बी ट्रायंगुलर. इस तरह से नॉर्मल स्टेम का ट्रांसोसेक्शन देखोगे इट विल बी लाइक दिस, राइट? नॉर्मल स्टेम ट्रांसोसेक्शन it looks like this, but here sedges they have stems like this. So sedges or grasses, they dominate the area, the geographical area, and they will decide, they will control the nutrient cycling, they will control the diversity there. So grasses and sedges, they are the dominant species in the grasslands. In bogs, sphagnum moss is the dominant species. Tall trees are the dominant species in the forest. Now, what is the criteria for dominance? Either they occupy maximum space or sheer numbers, they are present in large number. They occupy more space, or they have highest biomass. They produce the highest biomass, or they play a critical role in nutrient cycling, or they may contribute maximum to the energy flow, or they regulate or they control the other organisms in the community. If it is doing any of these, it can be a dominant species in a community. Either they are higher, the largest population, they have the largest population, that species is the dominant species, or it has higher biomass, it occupies maximum space, or it controls other species of a community, it plays a major role in nutrient cycling or energy flow, then it can be a dominant species. So that is dominance. Now, sometimes numerically abundant, okay, that means more in number, makes the organism superior and dominant, but it is not always the case. Some species, though they are present in very low in number, they may play a very key or important role and may be considered as dominant species. So it is only how impactful and important functions a species play in shaping the structure and function of community which decides its dominance. It is not always the number, the role played by the organism in the community, how impactful it is, how important are its functions. In shaping the structure and function of the community, that will decide whether the organism is dominant or not. Sometimes a group which has very low density, which has very fewer numbers, very few individuals, even then it is considered as dominant species. It is not necessary that the one with largest population will be dominant. Generally, they are dominant, but it is not always necessary. Okay. So we have, so the exception we were talking about, it is not necessary that always the species with largest number will be dominant. Some species with even lower number, they can be considered as dominant species. For example, keystone species. So we'll be discussing these prominent species or important species. So keystone species. Now this term keystone comes from this particular central stone in the arch, which is responsible for the entire stability of the arch. That is why it is called as keystone. It is very important. The entire stability of the arch depends upon that. So the keystone species term comes from this important piece of rock which is at the center of the arch. If it is not stable, if it is not properly set, the entire arch will collapse. In the same way, if the keystone species is affected, if the population of keystone species it goes down, or all the keystone species are removed, I mean all the individuals of the keystone species are removed, if it goes extinct, then the entire ecosystem may collapse. It might bring irreversible changes to the ecosystem. It may have ripple effect, or you generally say, what do you say, domino effect or cascading effect. So keystone species, entire stability of the ecosystem depends upon that, just like the entire stability of the arch depends upon this main important central stone. That is why same terminology is used in case of these biotic organisms. Keystone species, they're very important for the stability of the ecosystem. Okay, so keystone is a species. Keystone species is a species that impacts its community more than its mere abundance would predict. Normally, if a species is abundant, I mean the population of a species is more, it will obviously impact the community more, right? Generally, like for example, take in case of humans, Indian elections, for example. So if in a city or a say area, there is a prominent, or there is a community which is dominant or majority community, 90% of the people belong to same community, and obviously community plays a very important role in Indian politics, right? So obviously the chances are the person who is standing from that particular community in the election, the chances of that person, if he is okay, not very corrupted, not very bad character, if it is moderate also, the chances of him winning the election will be very high, because generally our uh, elections or politics, they are dependent upon community, caste, religion, all these, they will play an important factor. So similarly, in the ecosystem also, those species which are larger in number, they also impact, their impact will also be higher on the ecosystem. But keystone species, even though they are very few in number, right, their impact is considerably higher than you would predict based on its population. Though they are 10 in number, but their impact is very prominent. Even though they are very few in number, you cannot predict their impact just merely by their population size. Their impact is way higher than its population would predict, often altering the structure of ecosystem. So they may provide unique services which is not provided by any other organisms. So keystone species, they might provide a very unique service that is not provided by any other species, right? So other species and ecosystem depend on the keystone species to survive and reproduce. So the entire ecosystem depends upon this particular species. So that is why if it is affected, the entire ecosystem may collapse. So it would create a, if the keystone species is lost, if it is lost, it would create a ripple effect or domino effect or cascading effect within the community, leading to less healthy community as a whole, or the entire community may collapse. So without its keystone species, ecosystem would be dramatically different or even cease to exist completely. So it is very important, keystone species, right? So they have low functional redundancy. Keystone species have low functional redundancy. What do you mean by this? So if I'm doing something, suppose in a company there is an employee who performs a function. If anybody also can do that, if some other employee also can do that, multiple people are performing the same function, it is called as functionally redundant. That means multiple people are doing the same job. Okay. Now, in case of keystone species, they have low functional redundancy. That means the function, जनरली इसको हम लोग इकोलॉजी के टर्म में नीश बोलते हैं. The function which is provided, the role which is played by the keystone species, it is not performed by any other species. This is low functional redundancy. Yani the service which is provided by the keystone species is unique. No other species can play the same role. If other species are also playing the same role, for example, pollination is there. Honeybees are pollinating, birds are pollinating, bats are pollinating, or other birds are pollinating. Then multiple species are performing the same role. That means the functional redundancy is higher. If one species disappears, then the process will not stop. Other species will pollinate. But keystone species, they have low functional redundancy. That means the services provided by this species is very unique. Okay, no other species can replace keystone species. It cannot be replaced by other species. So if keystone species disappears, the ecosystem would be forced to radically change, allowing new and possibly invasive species to populate the habitat. So if the keystone species is gone, the ecosystem will collapse and invasive species may occupy the ecosystem. Okay. Now, any organism from plants to fungi can be a keystone species, but it is generally the animals that are keystone species. Mostly तुम्हारे animals के example. There are few plants, but mostly it is animals which are keystone species. They are not always the largest or most abundant species in an ecosystem. Okay. So scientists have often recognized three types of keystone species. One is predators, one group, tigers, wolves, they fall under this. Then ecosystem engineers are there. Beavers, for example, elephant also falls in this particular category. Then mutualists, honeybees, right? So in majority of the flowers, honeybee is the only service provider in case of pollination. Bats are also there, but they are only, bats can pollinate only specific flowers. We were talking about birds can pollinate only specific flowers, but for majority of the flowers, only honeybee is the major pollinator. This is the uh, species which pollinates majority of the flowers. So it can be mutualist. So these are the three types of keystone species that are identified by the scientists. Now, so I think examples we can, so I think the time is over, right? Do you have another